Okay. Right. Okay. So we are still having 3 minutes to go. In this time, you can talk in the chat if you have anything to share. I can stop sharing the screen so that you can see properly. So Eros, are you in Aberdeen?
Yeah, this week I'm in Aberdeen, Ajahn.
Okay. Okay. And Vernam is in Seattle. Said that good weather over there. Anybody from other place? Suchwat. Okay, so yesterday was a full moon. So it was a Maga Puja day, and I was away in the different temples just to make some merits, be part of the ceremony. And I just came back just about an hour ago. They arrived.
You might be tired.
Sorry?
You might be tired.
A little bit.
Did you drive down?
Since Monday, non-stop, 5 temples, 5 different temples in different cities, and talks, meditations, like that. Finally got back to center cold weather in Aberdeen. Right, so I think we better start, right? So Bhante is already here. So good evening, Bhante. So thank you for this evening. Your
Yes,
mic
good
is
evening.
Good evening. And I think further ado, we better start, Bhante. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just, have I got, what's the word? I want to bring up on the screen.
Okay, I have made you a co-host, Bhante, so I'm probably able to.
Can you co-host me? Thank
Yeah.
you. View gallery.
The meantime, I will mute everybody, okay? Until the question answer time.
That's it. Right. Okay. I've been asked to try and explain a little bit about the refuges and precepts. So I just thought, well, it's a good thing anyway, just to revise, what they're all about. So I'm going to share the screen just for a moment. Just so we know, where are we? There we go. Share. Okay. Can you see that? Yep. So, okay, thank you. Right. So if we start at the top there, normally speaking, we bow. So what does that mean when you actually, bow to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha? So it depends on what meaning you put into it. But it's basically the whole physical action is one of giving in, of surrender. Yeah. So when you bow, you're sort of giving yourself to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. But you can bow for all sorts of reasons. You can bow out of gratitude or a sense of awe. Just this amazing teaching that he gave us. And it's quite usual to do that. When I'm on Zoom, I tend not to do it or forget to do it because we're all sitting in chairs and stuff. But I ought to bring it in really, because it's so important to get that attitude of surrendering oneself, but you don't lose your ability to question the teachings. They've got to make sense to us. But it makes it much easier if you're open-minded and open-hearted about it. Westerners, is there a Westerner? Let's have a look, who's there? Just a minute. Oh yeah, well, there's Vernon. He'll probably understand what I'm saying. For people in the West, you get teachings like rebirth, which just don't go well with our religious history. And so it's a bit difficult for us. And because, we're so committed to a scientific view of life, thinking that all there is matter. So that can be a bit of a sticking point. But if you're just open-minded, open-hearted, what's the problem? It may or may not be true. We've got to find that out for ourselves. So then we say Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. The Pali is an Indo-European language, of course, and therefore all those vowels are open vowels, a bit like Italian, really. They're very open vowels. Sometimes they're long, like gacciami. Sometimes they're short, sarana, see? But the actual sound of the vowel is very open, as I say, like Italian. And we're paying homage to the teacher. So remember that the Buddha that we are honoring is also our, also our exemplar, I mean, he went through all this training that was available then, both in the jhana practices and in the more ascetic practices. He seems to have practiced mainly not eating. And this is understood to have been some sort of influence that the Jaina leader and the Jains had, because he was his elder contemporary. I don't know how many years older he was, but the Jains were already a settled group by the time he went out on his own mission. And of course, he tried to work with that system of letting go of the body, and then just found it was just more suffering, really. Didn't get him anywhere. So that's when he stopped. So that's the Namo Tassa Bhagavato, homage to the Buddha, right? He's the noble, meaning that he has achieved the final liberation and that he is fully self-enlightened, fully self-awakened. So then we take these refuges and precepts. So if you think of being on a ship in a very heavy storm, then where would you go? You'd make for the port, you'd make for a harbor, you'd make for safety. So that's what we're doing when we take refuge in the Buddha. We're putting our confidence in him. And confidence is often translated as faith, which is fine, so long as you don't mean by faith also a belief. That can be confusing. So faith is an attitude. Belief is a statement. It's a philosophy. But here we're just talking about an attitude of confidence. And that's what we're doing. We're putting our confidence in the Buddha. And when he first started teaching, and an ascetic came to him and said, I'd like to join you. We call it the first ordination. He just said, "Ehi passiko," he said, come and try, and that's known as the first ordination. After a few of his followers became arahats, he then established this particular form, for people who are joining him as disciples, other ascetics. So this is what we call the second ordination, Buddhaṃ Saranang Gacchāmi, you see, Dhammam and the Sangha. So then he's asking people who want to be monastics like himself to take that, they must take refuge, they must have confidence in him and in what he's teaching and the practice, that's the Dharma, and those people who attain one of the paths and fruits. So it's known as the second ordination. And then the third ordination comes because after about 20 years, the caliber, the quality of the monks and nuns who were joining him got less and less wonderful. And they began breaking rules. They began doing things which, well, weren't right. Some of them just according to the institutional rules. But one obvious one that you might be amused by, is that lay people complained that the monks were around all times of the day with their bowls, hunting for food. And some of them came round twice. So that's when he established the rule that you could only go out an alms round once, and it had to be eaten by midday. So that's where that rule came from. So as these rules grew and grew and grew, by the end he had about 227, then that became the ordination. And this form that we're looking at became the ordination for lay people taking refuges and precepts. So that's the Buddha. The Dharma is the teaching and the practice, and the Sangha refers to those people who are in one of the paths and fruits. So remember, there are 4 stages of becoming fully liberated. And if you want to, we can go into that another time. And you might ask, especially for someone who is coming into Buddhism like myself, how does somebody who is not a Buddhist but becomes a Buddhist follower, what are the qualities, or what makes them do that, you see? Well, it's, in my own understanding, it's that point in a practice where you sort of realize that this is the path you want to follow. This is the path. And it comes with a great sense of certainty that this is what you really want to follow. It doesn't stop you from investigating or taking teachings from other paths, but the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Buddha and the Dhamma are your touchstones. That's what you rely upon for your ultimate moral, ethical, and spiritual guidance. And at that point, you take refuges and precepts as a real life commitment, like getting married. It's like you commit yourself. Even so, even though you take these refuges and precepts, there's not a time written on them. So it might be that after 10 years, you suddenly realize that, oh no, I'm more interested in Islam. And then you become a Muslim. There's no time on it. And that's exactly the same with the ordination of monks and nuns. When you join the order, you don't join for a time. You don't say, that part of the ordination might be that you have to join for life or something. So if we compare that, say, with Christian monks, I think the Benedictines, after 8 years of being in the monastery, have to make a decision as to whether they're going to remain there for the rest of their lives or leave, basically. Well, that isn't what happens in the Buddhist Sangha. You join and you can leave whenever you want to see you that question in your heart as to whether you want to continue or not. And that, in a sense, is a reinforcer. So, for instance, in marriage, people take a vow to remain with each other, etc., etc. And then it's as though the vow becomes less and less important as the marriage carries on. And if there's a bit of disturbance in between the two people, and resentment grows, and etc., etc., and before you know it, the marriage falls apart. And I think that if every evening married people took their rings off and put them away, put them on the side, and in the morning they put them on with that same commitment, then it would reinvigorate that commitment to remain married. And it's the same with these with the Buddhist monks. Every half moon, the half moon and the new moon and the full moon, they come together to go through the refuge and precepts and recommit themselves, right? Through the Vinaya, through the Patimokkha, I should say, not the refuge and precepts. So this is something that is good to do every day, to begin your meditation with that commitment and just spend a moment reflecting on what it means to you, right? Not what it means to anybody else. What does it mean to you? And so you repeat these phrases slowly, and they become very meaningful. You're going to refuge. You're putting your trust in the Buddha. You're putting your trust. You're putting your spiritual life into the hands of the Dhamma, and you are taking as your exemplars all those people who have attained one of the powers and fruits. Now that word Sangha refers usually to the ordained Sangha, yeah? But here it's not the ordained Sangha. This is the Sangha, the noble Sangha, the Arya Sangha. And though that refers to all the people who've attained one of the powers and fruits, and they can obviously be lay people. So it's men and women, lay and monastics. That's who you're taking refuge in. And it is said that once the dispensation fails to produce people who have become Ariyas, then it becomes an intellectual exercise and finally corrupts into a simple ritual. So it's very important that even, today, and there are people who are arahats today, continue the actual spiritual tradition of attainment. It's their attainment which feeds back down into us ordinary Buddhists. Okay, so that's what we do, and we do it 3 times, and that's very much a shall we say a protocol during the time of the Buddha. When you asked a question, you always asked it 3 times. Right, there's one discourse where he's having an argument, he's having a discussion with a Jain monk, and he says, so are you saying, it goes something like this, so are you saying that bodily karma done by the body is more important than the karma in the mind? And the Jain says, yes, I do. And then he says, are you absolutely sure? Are you terribly sure? And he asks him 3, and that's so just to make sure that you've heard properly what the person is asking. Okay, so that's the refuges. The Sikkhapada, properly translated, is training rules. Pada means footsteps, training. Sikha means training, and often translated as precepts. But here, remember, these are not absolute laws. They're not. And in Buddhism, as you know, there's no personal God who beats you on the head if you happen to break one of these rules, and if you're very good, puts you in heaven. So all this business is taken care of by the Lord of Karma, the impersonal Lord of Karma. Doesn't matter who you are or how rich you are, etc., etc. The Lord of Karma sustains. And the first one, and they're all very basic. This is sort of where we don't want to go. So not to kill living beings. Now, not killing living beings, of course, leads us to protecting living beings, right? Not harming them and then protecting them. So it's leading us to an ethical relationship with living beings. which is wholesome and protective. Now, because these rules are not absolute laws, there may be occasion when you have to kill living beings. We had an occasion here with rats that were infecting. They were up in the roof, and we were afraid of them coming into the house. And the gardener really took it in his own hands. I could have stopped it, but in terms of vermin, then you have to ask yourself, well, you know, why are you killing these rats, you see? And it's the reason is, of course, not to kill rats for the joy of it, but to protect human beings from illnesses. So you'd have to have a good reason. That's, you know, but it's still there. There was an act. So remember that in the karmic law, when we do something harmful, it's often attenuated by doing something which is skillful. So very simply, if you say something which somebody's found it, you know, a bit upsetting, just by saying sorry, you finished the karmic process of that unskillful action. So we undertake not to kill living beings, right, as a training rule. And then we're not going to steal. You see, that's it's nicely put, to refrain from taking what is not. It should be actually normally it's translated as freely given. That's better. That's how it's normally translated, freely given. So, well, not taking, you know, respecting other people's property, not taking what is not freely given to us, leads us towards, you know, generosity. So instead of always wanting what the other person has, because that's why you steal, of course, you're more open to giving what you have. And generosity is, you know, one of the great virtues. The Buddha always started his talks to lay people with dana. He always started off with generosity, and he pointed out that even thieves can be generous. Having taken something from you, they might give it to somebody else. Now, the next one is to do with refraining from sexual misconduct. And that's what it's put down as, kamesu, you know, karma in that sense. But it also has a meaning of indulgence. So it's not, I mean, in its restricted form, it's just sexual misconduct. But in its more, shall we say, wider form, it's really looking at indulgence and seeing that by indulging our senses, by overeating, over drinking, and all that sort of stuff, that is also contrary to the spiritual life. The next one is to refrain from false speech, not to tell lies. And this is right speech. This is easy enough to keep. I think sometimes we find ourselves in a place where we talk about white lies. So saying something for what we consider to be a good reason. You might, for instance, not want to tell somebody that you're ill. You've got a serious illness. You don't want to tell them just yet, but they ask you how you are, and you say, "Oh yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm fine." It's little things like that which I think does not come under the idea of false speech. False speech is to take advantage. Yeah. And of course, right speech is quite the opposite, speaking truthful, kindly, at the right time, and so on and so forth. And then finally, intoxicants. So that's really our whole practice is concerned with maintaining mindfulness. So putting anything into the body which is going to disturb that sense of mindfulness is obviously not something we ought to do. I know that in the West is very much, you know, an alcohol society. We have superb beers and wines, and again, you know, it's being able not to refrain from taking those things, you know. And all these rules really are to be interpreted by us. And we're the ones who will, you know, reap the consequence of our decisions. So whenever we find ourselves in a moral dilemma, we really have to sort of stop still and think about it, reflect upon it, and sometimes ask for guidance. So that's what we're doing anyway when we take refuge and precepts. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there while we actually take the refuge and precepts, and then we'll sit. Okay, so. I am going to bow. I mean, I'm sitting as well in front of the laptop here, but I shall definitely bow. Bodhang pujami. Dhammang pujami. Sanghang pujami. Now, I know that traditionally people repeat these things after the monastic, but in this case, just chant along with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bodhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi bodhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi bodhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panati pata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Adina dana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Kame sumi chachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Musawada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Sura miraya majja pamadatana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Tisaranena saha panchasilan sadhukang katva appamadena sampadeta. Having taken the refuges and precepts, quoting the final words of the Buddha, strive diligently for your liberation. Okay, so if we now sit for half an hour, is it? Oh, I've taken a bit more time than I thought I would, but there we are. So if you just like to get yourself into a comfortable position, and we'll do a little sitting. And then I'll go straight into the metta practice, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Okay. So don't forget, just put some energy into that posture. Well, it's mainly up the spine. And if you have a bad back like me, it's all right to have something just supporting that, but you have to lift the spine. And then spending that moment relaxing the brow, the jaw, the shoulders. And then to draw your attention to the breath and just stay there for a while. And then as and when you feel settled, just whatever draws your attention within that field of awareness, open up to it, feel it, explore it. What's it made of? Seeing its impermanent nature, seeing it as an object, feeling it. A moment's reflection. How did you deal with the various things that came up during that time? Desires, aversions, fears, anxiety, sleepiness, happiness, joy, excitement, planning. Did you know what to do? Just choose one of them. Can you formulate a resolution around that? For instance, if you were feeling very sleepy, next time I'll open my eyes, I'll stand up. So let's practice a little metta bhavana. So again, using whatever blessings you normally use. The traditional ones you might say are may you be safe, well, and happy. And then to develop an ease of living, to live more contented in harmony with the world, even when the world is not a pleasant place for us. May you be safe, well, and happy. May you live contented in harmony with the world. Let's bring to mind a benefactor, someone who's helped us in our lives. Those who are near and dear to us. Friends, people at work, whomever we wish. Bringing to mind a neutral person, someone we see but don't know. Running the stream of goodwill towards ourselves. Into the heart of goodwill, anyone we're having difficulties with. Radiating outwardly, first of all, to each other, our present spiritual companions. May we radiating outwards to all our neighbors and neighborhood. All the people in our country. All the peoples of Europe. All people on earth. And to all beings in all directions. May all beings be happy. Sabe sata sukita hontu. Sabe sata sukita hontu. Sabe sata sukita hontu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good.
Yes, thank you very much, Bhante, for this explanation, a living a guided meditation, and a metta bhavana today.
Thank you.
Anybody wants to ask any question or share your experience today? There was one question,
Oh, it's on the chat box, is it?
not in the chat box.
I've got nothing on my chat box.
Not in mine.
Oh, in yours.
Maybe, we have a Rose here, so she asked the question, emailed me. Rose, would you like to ask a question that you emailed me? Couldn't find the email. You have to unmute if you want to ask.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, Master. Yes, I missed the first two sessions, and then the Prajan session just sent me the link. So then I listened and then study all through. Then I had this question and email to Prajan. actually, at the end of the second session, I feel like my practice as a regular basis on the daily basis is very similar and aligned to what you have been teaching. I just wonder, my questions, is it you call Zen meditation or Buddhist meditation or Namasi meditation? So what is really differences about it?
About differences between the different ones. Well, it's mainly to do with technique.
Okay. That's what I wonder, because when you call it different names. So then I'm a little bit confused on that.
There are so many techniques. I mean, if you go to Thailand, you'll find hundreds of them.
Yes, yes.
You know, and the Burmese, there's about 6 or 7 different famous teachers in Burma who all teach a slightly different technique. But
Yes.
the purpose, remember, is always to establish an inner quiet observation post, you can call it, from which you can observe the 3 characteristics of existence. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Simply just the name, a difference based on the technique, really.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
because
an obvious difference would be the teachings of U Ba Khin, say through Goenkaji, and the teachings of the Mahasi Sayadaw of Burma, who use noting, going slow, etc.
Okay.
Where have you gone?
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So thank you. And another question, is there a difference between Vipassana and Satipatthana practice?
No,
Thank you.
the Satipatthana discourse is concerned with Vipassana, insight practice. You get these 2 words constantly coming up in the verses, Sampajano Satima. So Sampajano is with intuitive intelligence, with curiosity, and Satima is awareness. So Sati Panya.
Mhm.
They're
Another
2
thing.
sides. They're 2
Yes.
sides of the same coin, you see. The
Mhm.
awareness is receptive, receiving, but what grasps, what understands what you're actually observing, that's the intelligence, and it's an intuitive intelligence. It's not rational. It's got nothing to do with words. You either see it or you don't. So insights are immediate.
Okay, and there's
Prajan, may I have a little bit of that, please? As we know, at the world of the meditation, we do have 2 kinds of meditation, which we call samatha meditation and vipassana in meditations. When you say about that, so how you gonna categorize that with a sati sampajanya?
Yeah, the absorption meditation, the jhana meditation, are concerned with developing beautiful mental states. And they are joyful. They're to be enjoyed. There is a danger that you become attached to them, but the Buddha was all for developing samatha. But vipassana is an investigative process. So you always bring in that sense of curiosity, which is how I personally translate the word piti, which is normally translated as joy, as one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. But it's the joy of interest. Yeah. And in certain schools, the ones I might be confusing you here, but in the discourses, the jhana that the Buddha talks about are also in themselves a process of investigation. But there is a difference between being in a jhana state and observing the qualities, the 3 characteristics, and absorbing into the jhana states, where you are simply in a state of pure happiness. So it's a bit like watching a film. So you can either watch a film and to observe the acting or the directing or the camera angles or the way the light is used, or you can just dive into the film and 2 hours later you come out and say, wasn't that a wonderful film? So you lose yourself in it. That's the absorption.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Prajan.
Yeah. Yeah. Your sound is off, Ajahn.
Sorry, I was just saying that I don't have any other questions now.
No?
Just
Okay.
on the spot, anybody wants to ask the question to the Bhante, or you can share your experiences of your practice. So, floor is yours. It sounds nobody's gonna ask and nobody's gonna share, which is a sound of a perfect silence.
Oh, I think Erosh wants to say something.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question, Bhante. Do you know, I do Anapana meditation, and when the breath becomes subtler and subtler, sometimes it disappears, and you lose actually the object and the base of it, and then more and more thoughts come in, and it's difficult to keep your concentration. How do you handle this?
Well, if you think of the body and mind, they're reacting off each other. So what happens there is your feel of the breath coming and going, and you're aware of it, and the body's relaxing and relaxing and relaxing, but the concentration is not keeping up with the relaxation of the body, so it loses contact. See? And then, so now you have a choice. You can either stay in that place just feeling whatever you can, or draw your attention to the body itself. So you can move off where you're watching the breath and just go down the body and come up the body, you see. And as you do that, the breath will reappear, and then you go back to the breath.
Okay.
But you're right. The danger when that happens is that we drop the concentration almost completely and the mind goes off all over the place.
Yeah.
So you always give this, you have to always give the mind something to do, the awareness something to do, or else it'll do something with you, you see.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. That's a good sign to the meditator, though. You know, the fact that, you know, you're getting there, you're very still on the breath, and then somehow the breath begins to disappear. So be careful, and you put your attention on something, some other part of the body, and then when it comes back, you go back to the breath.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all for tonight.
That's lovely. Yes.
So thank you very
Yeah, is that a picture you've got there, Durga? Are you up, or are you up in Scotland somewhere?
Durga
No, yeah.
in
Now you
London. Unmute Durga.
Namaskar, Bhante Vandana. I think my husband Ram, he put some background. I don't know
Okay.
where it
Okay.
is, but I'm
Yeah,
in my room here in London.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Bhante. This has
Thank you.
been really well. I was just listening all the nice chat here, and thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you can tell which picture was it.
Okay.
Somewhere in England, actually.
All right.
Not in Scotland, England.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close to our place.
So Thank you very much, everyone,
you.
for
Yes.
yeah. Thank you, Bhante, for your time and
Thank
wisdom.
you. Yeah.
See you next
See you
week.
next week.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Bhante.
Yes.
Ajahn,
Toodaloo.
thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.